All right, so I just got done watching The Flash, and I want to talk to you about it. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it great? And why did it tank? Let's discuss. All right, so just finished watching The Flash. Got my red shirt on for the video. It isn't The Flash, it's Iron Man, but it's a red shirt. But yeah, came out of the theater. They gave me this really cool poster they were giving away. Don't know if you guys will be able to see that very well, but got a really cool poster. So I wanted to share my thoughts on the movie because this was a highly anticipated movie. Man, this movie was announced, what, 10, 15 years ago? It's been well over a decade. So The Flash has always been one of my favorite characters. I won't say it's like the top three, but it's always been my favorite, one of my favorites. I've loved what they've done with The Flash and the animated series with Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and Young Justice. I watched the first season of The Flash. Actually, I watched 6 seasons of The Flash, the TV series on the CW. First season was pretty good. Second season was okay, and then after that, it kind of just fell off. And after season 6, it was just so bad, so horrible. The acting was bad, the writing was bad, the villains were bad. I just finally gave up, and that's not who I am. I'm somebody who, once I get invested in a show, even if it's bad, I just want to see it through because I've already invested years of my life into it. It was so bad where I didn't care. I just gave up on it. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the actual Flash movie. It's finally here, so let's talk about it. But first things first, disclaimer, this is not a spoiler-free video. I am going to be talking about the movie, so there are going to be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the Flash movie yet and you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch this right now. Go watch the movie and then come back, watch this video, and then let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on the movie, if you enjoyed it, if you hated it, why you did enjoy or you didn't like it, and yeah. So, tone of the movie. So, I thought that they did a really good job of balancing a couple different tones in the movie. You have Ezra Miller's version of The Flash, which is, kind of lighthearted. He likes to joke a lot. There's banter. He's kind of abrasive, kind of annoying. So, there is that from the previous movies, but then they also did a good job of balancing that with the overall story plot of the movie, which is, I won't say that it's dire. Well, it is dire, but there is a lot of emotion in this movie. And there are times when you get emotionally invested and pulled into the character. And then there are other times where I felt like they didn't really do a good job of that, and I'll talk about that later. But yeah, the movie was, I don't know how I would grade it. I kind of want to see it again. The movie is not bad by any means. There were some Warner Brother executives, James Gunn included, who were, you know, touting this movie as one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. It is not that. As good as it was, it's definitely not one of the greatest movies of all time. And I don't mean that to be mean or, to hate on the movie, because I enjoyed the movie. Thought it was a good movie, but there are definitely some things in the movie that really pulled me out of it. But the tone is a good balance, and I think you'll be able to get emotionally invested with the character. I think Ezra Miller did a really good job of playing two different types of characters against himself, and I'll talk about that too here in a little bit. But one of the things I want to talk about, which is starting to be, I guess, a trend, and it could just be the theaters that I'm going to, but I want to talk about the sound and the video quality. So I just recently signed up for MoviePass, and this was my first time using it. I actually got the movie free because for whatever reason my MoviePass card wasn't working, so the girl at the counter just gave me a ticket. But I did see it in IMAX. I saw it in one of my local theaters, which I'll probably never go to that theater again because it was a very bad experience. I had hair in my popcorn. The movie stopped, or the video stopped working for like 10 minutes, even though the audio was working. And it was just not a good experience. But the The video on IMAX is pretty good. I would say, definitely go see this movie on the big screen, before you watch it at home. This was one of those movies. I don't really go to the theaters very much anymore, but this was one of those movies where I was like, I have to see this on the big screen because I don't want to get spoilers waiting, 45 days or whatever it is now before it comes to release. And it's just one of those grandeur movies that I wanted to see on the big screen. So I don't really have any issue with the video, but the audio on this movie was definitely better than, the latest Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, I believe it's called too. I don't remember if it's Cross or Into the Spider-Verse. I believe this is Across the Spider-Verse. The audio on that was just horrible. And I saw it in an AMC theater. There was no bass. I couldn't hardly hear the dialogue. That was not the issue with The Flash. However, the bass was lacking. Very lacking, I noticed. It was loud and there was some bass, but I felt like either the bass was just turned down or it just wasn't mixed right for the big screen. So depending on where you go, your local theater, I don't know, your experience may vary, but I wasn't really impressed with the audio. So I'm looking forward to getting that at home, checking that out because, I feel like most of our theaters, home theater enthusiasts, some of you guys got some very, very expensive equipment. You've got a bunch of subs, you've got big subs, 12, 15, 18, 20-inch subs. I feel like I'm going to enjoy the movie better in my home theater, at least, sound wise. All right, so kind of going back to the tone in the movie, I really like what they did with Barry's motivation. So I'm going to try not to spoil things too much, but again, this is not a spoiler-free video. But I like what they did with Barry's motivation in the movie. Obviously, if you know The Flash, if you watch the Flashpoint, movie, the animated movie, if you've watched the Flash TV series or if you read the comics, none of this stuff is new to you. You know that, with the Flashpoint storyline, Barry goes back in time to save his mother from dying. And originally it was Eobard Thawne, so Reverse Flash, who, took Barry's mother away from him and went back in time to change the past and stuff. So they did something a little bit different in this one. Eobard Thawne is not in this movie, so I was a little bit disappointed. I was expecting to see him because he's the reason why Barry goes back in time to save his mother. But it's a little bit different, so I was a little bit disappointed. I wish they would have kept to the storyline and the plot with that. But, you know, most of that is there. Again, this is an adaptation from the comics. I know movies that don't usually follow the comics one to one. But I did like, how he was so driven to save his mother. And that's what emotionally pulls you into the movies because we all have moms, we all have dads, we all have family members or friends or somebody that we love. And when that person gets taken from you, it's hard. I've experienced that in my life. I've lost some people really close to me. So it makes you kind of think, what would I do in this situation? And, Barry in the movie, he wants to save his mother, which you sympathize with him, but then it's also very selfish because when you start thinking about the repercussions of what can happen if you go back and change the past, which we see in the movie, all this other crazy stuff starts happening. It's a very selfish way of thinking, but it's like, man, I sympathize with him. Like if it was my mom or my dad or my brother or my sister, my wife or whoever, yeah, I'd probably do the same thing. So I think, Andy Muschietti did a very good job. His team did a very good job of making you feel emotionally invested in that character. And it really makes you think of, it really makes you sympathize with Barry as to why he's so motivated and so driven. And also because he wants to, save his father. So not only did he lose his mother, but then he lost his father who's been accused of, you know, killing his wife, which is not true at all. So I really like the way that they did that. Now, I also like what they did with I guess you could call him the alternate Barry. So again, despite all the stuff that Ezra Miller has done in his personal life, just focusing on the movie, Ezra Miller did an incredible job of playing against himself. And I like what they did with showing you what Barry Allen would have been like had he not got his powers yet. He was very different, or, he hadn't got his powers and his mother was still in his life. She hadn't died yet. And he just had a very different outlook on the world. His attitude was different. He was still annoying, but in a different kind of way. And you can see that he was basically like a happy kid. He was, I believe he was in high school still, and he had no worries. He had no cares. He was just living his life, and you really get to see how something drastic like losing your mother in a horrible way can actually change a person instantly, and it really, changes your outlook on life. So, Ezra Miller did an incredible job again playing two Barry Allens, and I thought that was really cool that they went that route. I was kind of wondering how they were going to fit in, you know, multiple Barrys in this storyline since it's a little bit different from the Flashpoint, at least the animated movie. But I think it worked. All right, so going back to being emotionally invested, this is it's not being it has nothing to do with being emotionally invested, but what I'm about to talk about, which is the CGI and the special effects in this movie, it was bad. Like not all of it was bad, but a lot of it was bad. And I recently heard Andy, Muschietti say that when you're watching The Flash and if you feel like some of the CGI looks bad, they said, or he said, whoever said, that that was intentional because we're supposed to, as the viewer watching the movie, we're seeing things from Barry's point of view. So when he's running as fast as he's running through the Speed Force, that's how he's seeing things. And I get what he's saying about that, but I don't know if I believe that. And the reason is because, and this is just my thought, this isn't anything that's, been said in public. Nobody has, from Warner Brothers has said this. This is just my thoughts. But my thinking is with all the stuff that was going on with Ezra Miller, I think Warner Brothers was put in a really, really tight spot. They didn't really know what was going to happen. I mean, the movie was already shot, the movie was already filmed, and I believe they were in post production, so they were probably doing all the special effects and the VFX stuff when all that crazy stuff was happening with Ezra Miller week after week after week after week, months and months. My thinking is they were probably like, hey, you know what? We're not sure what's going to happen with this movie. We've already invested millions of dollars into this movie. How about we not dump a bunch more money into this movie when we don't even know what's going to happen to it? We don't know if it's going to get released in theaters. We don't know if we're going to drop it off on, HBO Max or something like that. So my thinking is they probably cut back the funding on that, on the special effects, because there was just so much uncertainty, and they probably knew they were going to lose a lot of money, making this film because of what was going on. So if you haven't seen it yet, the CGI is very spotty and it's very apparent. When Barry's running through the Speed Force, that stuff is great. Like when you first see him in the beginning of the movie and he starts running, you're like, man, this guy is moving. Like he is really moving. And I think that they did a really good job of showing that, compared to even the previous movies that he was in, Justice League, and whatever other movies that he was in the DCEU, the former DCEU. And I think they did it better than Flash, the TV series. Obviously, the Flash TV series has very limited, funds for special effects, and the special effects in that was just bad. But they did a really good job of like Barry when he's running through the Speed Force, and a lot of the special effects they did with that. But some of the other stuff, like you could tell it was obvious that there was heavy CGI, and that just pulled me out of the movie. Like every time I saw it, I was like, why do these people and these babies, why do they look like that? Even people that were in the movie, like Michael Shannon, there were some scenes where it was like, wow, they went really heavy on the CGI. Again, maybe they're telling the truth. I just don't believe it. That just seems far-fetched, to me. But most of the CGI is pretty good, but there's a lot it's just not good. And like I said, it pulled me out of the movie. Now, talking about the Speed Force, they did an awesome job not only showing you like Barry running through the Speed Force, but also kind of explaining what the Speed Force is and what happens when like Barry starts running faster than the speed of light. It was really cool, and there are some. You can tell that they took some similarities from Terminator on how they explain their time travel and stuff like that, especially with the little ball or dome or whatever he was in. I forget what they called it in the movie, but that stuff was really cool. I'm really glad to see. I'm really glad to see how they did that. And you know, I'm unfortunately there's not going to be another Flash movie. I highly doubt that there's going to be another one. But hopefully they continue to improve. Hopefully we see another Flash in the new DCU, and they continue to improve on the Speed Force, because the Speed Force is really cool. And phasing, they did phase, or the Flash does phase in this movie. That's always been like one of my favorite things about the Flash, when he starts phasing through stuff. He's never done it in any of the other live action movies that he's been in. We've seen it in the TV shows like Young Justice and Justice League and stuff like that, but to see it actually for the first time, and they kind of explained how that works in the movie, but I just thought that that was really cool. So cameos. So some really cool cameos that they did. Some I was not expecting, some I was like, why did they do that? So we got to see, the original Superman, and I forget the Supergirl, I forget her name, the actress's name, but we get to see them in the movie, and surprisingly enough, the CGI on that was pretty decent. Like, you could still tell that it was CGI, but they did a pretty good job. And then you see Nicolas Cage. Like, I was not expecting that. I had heard that there was going to be rumors, but I was like, nah, they're not going to do that. For those of you that don't know, Nicolas Cage was tied to a Superman project years ago. I don't know why. As much as I love Nicolas Cage, I don't see why he was ever considered. And you may have even seen some pictures online when he was in a Superman suit. Looked really weird. But he was in the movie. He made a cameo. And I couldn't tell if that was actually him or it was CG. Like, it didn't really look like it was him, but it was different to see, especially like he was pretty jacked. Like, he's Superman. But I guess it was kind of cool to see that. And then we saw, who else did we see? George Clooney shows up at the end as Batman. So that was weird. I was not expecting that. He was the worst Batman, so I'm not sure why he was in the movie. But, it's cool to see how they did some cameos, and to kind of see what happens when Barry messes with the timeline. You get all these other, like, timeline offshoots and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. All right, so why did the movie tank? Because it's not doing good. It's only been out a week, and it is just tanking. So my biggest thinking on why it's tanking is probably because of all the stuff that went on with Ezra Miller in his personal life. And there was a lot of people that just straight up said, I'm not watching the movie because I'm not supporting him. And, I get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Totally reasonable. I mean, there's a lot of people in Hollywood that are horrible people, have done some horrible things. But, I go to the movies to see the stuff that I want to see. So, if you have personal feelings about that or issues, then that's your thing. But I think probably the biggest reason why it tanked is probably because of that. Now, I will say also the story kind of falls apart a little bit towards the end. I wasn't too happy with how they did the ending. And actually, for me, it was very predictable. As soon as I saw like the future Barry, I guess you could call him, the actual antagonist of the movie, I already knew. Well, I'll say this. At first, I thought it was Eobard Thawne, but then I was like, nah, he looks different. That's not him. And then I figured out, I was like, okay, this is gonna be another version of Barry. So it was very predictable. I don't know if that has something to do with why it's tanking and people just didn't enjoy the ending or what. The movie as a whole was really cool. I'm glad that we got it. I'm glad that it's here. It's been a long time coming. I'm looking forward to adding it to my collection. But the ending was a little bit of a letdown, and you know, it is what it is. But it's a good movie. You guys should watch it if you haven't watched it already. Oh, and Sasha Callier, I forget how to say her name, but Supergirl, she was pretty awesome. Not enough screen time, like very different Supergirl, They did some things that were very interesting with her, but to see like a modern day Supergirl and how I like how they portrayed her because she was locked up for however many years. Yeah, she's gonna react that way. Like she was kind of crazy whenever she finally got rescued. She was crazy. She was angry. She was mad because she had been locked up. But she did a really good job. I'm not gonna say she did better than Henry Cavill because Henry Cavill is my boy. I love what Henry Cavill did with Superman. I think he's probably always going to be my favorite. I don't know who this new guy is going to be with the new DCU, but yeah, she was awesome, and I wish we would have seen more of her. Seeing Michael Shannon again as Zod was cool, and I wish we would have seen more of Feora L. Like I love what they did with her character. I was a little bit disappointed because she wasn't moving as fast as she was in Man of Steel. Like when she starts moving really quick, they didn't really do that with the Kryptonites in this movie. Now they were still moving fast because they were still able to react to, Flash and Supergirl when they were moving like super speed. But yeah, the movie overall, I would say I'd probably give it probably a 6. I want to give it a 6.5, but there's just some stuff in the movie that just really, like I said, really pulls me out of the movie. I didn't really care for the ending. It was predictable, and I didn't really feel like the ending or the bad Barry, like the true villain of the film. I didn't really feel like he just didn't feel threatening to me. Like I wasn't scared. And I don't know if that's because I had already figured out what was going to happen, but it's still a good movie. And like I said, I'm glad to add it to my collection. I'm glad that we have it, and I'm glad that we finally got a proper solo standalone movie for The Flash. So those are my thoughts on the movie. That's my review. Now it's your turn. Let me know down in the comments if you've seen it. If you have, what are your thoughts on it? Who was your favorite character? What was your favorite part? What didn't you like about it? Do you feel the same way that I did about the CGI? Did it pull you out of the movie? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. Again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. I just hit 4,000 subscribers. I'm super, super thankful about that. Got so much more room to grow. I want to get to 10,000 subscribers. Hopefully by the end of this year, I will be doing a giveaway in the future. I'm just waiting on some more stuff to get here so that I can make a video about that. But if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please subscribe and please hit the bell notification so you don't miss any future content. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.